Paris, France. 1778. The most powerful city in the world, the Palace of Versailles. Gold on every wall, silk on every chair, crystal chandeliers catching the light from 100 candles, men in uniforms decorated with medals they had earned in wars, women in dresses that cost more than most people earned in a year. This was a room of kings and generals, a room of empires. Into this room walked an old man. He was 72 years old. He moved slowly. His body was tired. He had crossed an ocean to be here in winter, on a ship, at 72, because there was no other choice. He wore simple clothes, no sword, no uniform, no medals, no title printed on a card. He wore a fur hat, the kind that farmers and woodsmen wore in the American wilderness. The most powerful men in Europe looked at this old man in his farmer's hat, and they listened. Not because he commanded an army, not because he controlled gold or land or ships. They listened because of something harder to explain. Because when he spoke, the room became quiet in a different way. The kind of quiet that happens when people feel without being able to say why that the person speaking has earned every word they are about to say. Everyone in that room knew the name Benjamin Franklin, but very few of them knew the story behind the name. Who was this man? How does a boy, the 15th child in a poor family, a boy who left school at 8 years old, become the most admired American in the world? This story does not begin in a palace. It does not begin in a university or a government building or a great library. It begins in a small house that smelled of tallow and soap in Boston, more than 70 years before that room in Paris. Stay with me. This is the story of Benjamin Franklin. If you enjoy learning English through stories like this, please subscribe. It helps me make more stories for you every week. Now, let's begin. Boston, 1706. A city by the ocean. Cold winters, short summers. People who worked with their hands and expected their children to do the same. America was not a free country yet. It belonged to England. Most people never question this. It was simply the way things were. Benjamin Franklin was born on January 17th, 1706. He was the 15th child, 15 children in one house, around one table, sharing one fire in the winter. His father's name was Josiah. He made soap and candles to sell. It was steady work, but the money was never enough, not with 15 children. In a house that full, it was easy to disappear, easy to be the child nobody noticed. Benjamin was not the oldest. He was not the youngest. He was somewhere in the middle, one face among many, one voice among many. But Benjamin read. He read everything he could find. He read when he should have been sleeping. He read by candlelight when the candles were nearly finished. He borrowed books from neighbors and read them so carefully, so slowly, so completely, that when he returned them, he could remember almost every page. Books were his secret world, the one place where he was not the 15th child of a candle maker, the one place where his mind could move without anyone telling it to stop. Then, when Benjamin was 8 years old, school stopped. His father needed money. The family needed Benjamin to work, not to sit in a classroom. So one morning he went to school, and then he did not go back. Benjamin sat at the table that evening. He did not cry. He was 8 years old. He did not yet have the words for what he felt. But he understood something. in the way that children sometimes understand things before they can explain them. The world had already decided what someone like him could and could not have. He looked at the book in front of him, and he kept reading. When Benjamin was 12, his father sent him to work with his older brother, James. James had a printing shop in Boston. A printing shop makes newspapers and books. It is the place where words become real, where ideas travel from one person's mind into thousands of hands. For Benjamin, this was not just a job. This was the closest thing to heaven he had ever seen. Ink, paper, words, every day. But James was not kind. James was the boss. He reminded Benjamin of this every day, not always with words, but with the way he spoke, the way he gave orders, the way he looked at his younger brother like a tool he had been given to use. When Benjamin made a mistake, James was loud about it. When Benjamin did something well, James said nothing. Benjamin worked long hours. He was paid very little. He was never thanked. He learned everything anyway. He learned how words go on to paper. He learned how ideas travel from one mind to thousands of minds through ink and printing, and the hands of people who carry newspapers home at the end of the day. He learned the entire business of making words real. And at night, after the shop was closed, after James was asleep, Benjamin wrote. He wrote essays. He wrote opinions about the city, about politics, about the way things were and the way he thought they should be. He was 16 years old. He was smart, and he knew it. But he also knew that James would never publish the words of his younger brother. James would never give him that. So Benjamin invented a name. Silence Dogood. A fictional woman, a widow, funny and sharp and wise, with opinions about everything. Benjamin wrote her letters carefully, making her voice different from his own. Then, in the dark, he slipped them under the door of the print shop. James published them. The readers of Boston loved them. They wrote back, asking for more. They argued about her ideas in taverns and at dinner tables. They asked, "Who is this woman? She is wonderful." Benjamin said nothing. He set the type for her letters with his own hands, every week, and he said nothing. And in the quiet of the shop, when no one was watching, he allowed himself a small, private smile. He was learning something that would stay with him for the rest of his life. You do not need permission to say something true. You only need to find a way to say it. Benjamin was 17 when he ran away. He left James. He left Boston. He left in secret against the law, against his work contract, against everything a younger brother was supposed to do. He had a little money, not much. He traveled by ship to New York, found no work there, and continued south to Philadelphia. The journey was long. By the time he arrived, his clothes were dirty, his money was almost gone, and he had not eaten a proper meal in days. On his first morning in Philadelphia, he had enough money for 3 rolls of bread. He bought them. He walked out into the street eating one, carrying the other 2 under his arms. He was hungry and tired and young and completely alone in a city where nobody knew his name. A young woman standing in a doorway saw him pass. She laughed, not cruelly, but the way you laugh when you see something that is both sad and funny at the same time. Her name was Deborah Reed. He did not know that yet. He did not know that one day she would become his wife. He just walked past her, eating his bread, looking at his new city. He found work at a printing shop. He worked hard. He was skilled and careful and quick. People noticed. Word traveled. Eventually, it reached the governor of Pennsylvania, a man named William Keith. The governor called Benjamin in. He looked at this young man, 17, no formal education, no family name worth mentioning, and he said, "You have talent. You should have your own printing shop. Go to London. Buy the equipment you need. I will send you the money and the letters of introduction." Benjamin was 18 years old. He had never left America. He got on a ship and sailed across the Atlantic Ocean, full of a feeling he had not felt very many times in his life. Someone powerful believed in him. He arrived in London. He waited for the money. It did not come. He waited longer. He wrote to the governor. Nothing. He went to the address he had been given. The man there looked at Benjamin with tired, unsurprised eyes. "There is no money coming," the man said. "The governor does this. He makes promises. He does not keep them. You are not the first." Benjamin stood on a street in London, 18 years old, alone. No money, no contacts, no letters of introduction, no plan. He had trusted someone completely, without reservation, the way young people trust when someone important tells them they are special. And that person had lied. Simply, carelessly, without even the dignity of a real reason. He stood there for a long time. The city moved around him, carts and horses and voices in the fog, and Benjamin Franklin stood still in the middle of it, 18 years old, and understood something that he would carry for the rest of his life. No one was coming to help him. No governor, no older brother, no powerful friend with letters and money. If he was going to build something, anything, he was going to build it himself. With his own hands and his own mind, and nothing else. He found work. He read. He stayed in London for almost 2 years, learning everything the city could teach him. He made friends, real friends, thinkers and writers and curious people who argued about ideas late into the night. He read in the evenings and worked in the mornings, and slowly, quietly, he became someone harder and more careful and more certain of himself than the boy who had arrived. He sailed back to Philadelphia in 1726. He was 20 years old. He worked, he saved, he planned, he did not rush, and he did not wait for anyone else. By the time he was 22, Benjamin Franklin had his own printing shop, built with his own money. Owing nothing to anyone, he married Deborah Reed, the woman who had laughed at him on his first morning in the city, standing in her doorway watching a hungry boy eat bread in the street. She remembered him. He remembered her. They built a life together. His newspaper, the Pennsylvania Gazette, became the most widely read paper in the American colonies. His almanac, which he called Poor Richard's Almanac, came out every year and was found in nearly every home. He filled it with sayings, simple, honest, practical sayings that people could remember and use. Early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. An investment in knowledge pays the best interest. Simple words, but behind them, a man who had spent years reading by candlelight after everyone else was asleep, who knew from his own bones what it meant to invest in knowledge when you had nothing else to invest. Benjamin's business grew. His name grew. And as his name grew, he began to think about something that had stayed in the back of his mind for many years. He thought about a boy, 8 years old, sitting at a table in Boston on the evening when school ended and not going back. In 1731, Benjamin helped start something new. A library. A public library open to everyone. Rich people, poor people, tradesmen, farmers, children. You did not need to own books. You did not need to be a certain kind of person. You came in. You chose a book. You took it home. You read it. You brought it back. Sit with that for a moment. Benjamin Franklin was 8 years old when the world told him, "Books are not for people like you. You do not have the money. You do not have the time. Go to work." He was 25 years old when he told the world, "You were wrong." He could not go back and give that 8-year-old boy a library. He could not undo that evening at the table in Boston. But he could make sure that no other child would have to sit in the dark and wonder whether learning was only for people with money. He never made a speech about it. He never explained his reasons. He just built the library and opened the doors. Benjamin Franklin was curious about everything. He asked questions that other people thought were too strange to ask out loud. In the 1750s, he became interested in lightning. Everyone knew lightning was dangerous. Everyone had seen it split trees and start fires and kill animals in open fields. But almost no one had asked the most obvious question. What is it? Where does it come from? What is it made of? Benjamin asked. He had been reading about a new and mysterious force that scientists were just beginning to study. They called it electricity. Benjamin had a thought. Just a thought at first. The kind of thought that seems too simple to be right. That lightning and electricity might be the same thing. To find out, he did something that anyone watching would have called madness. He went outside in a thunderstorm. He had a kite. He had a long, wet string. He tied a metal key to the string, near the bottom where he held it. He stood in the rain and the wind, and he flew the kite up into the dark, flickering sky. And he waited. Then a spark, a crack of electricity jumping from the key to his hand, a sharp shock that traveled up his arm and told him, without any possibility of doubt, that he was right. Lightning was electricity. He had proved it. He could have died. A bolt of lightning hitting that kite directly would have killed him where he stood. He knew this. He did it anyway, because the question mattered more than the risk. Because knowing was worth more than staying safe. He used what he had learned to build something useful. The lightning rod. A simple metal rod placed on top of a building, connected to the ground by a wire. When lightning struck, it followed the rod down into the earth instead of tearing through the roof and setting the building on fire. Buildings stopped burning. People stopped dying. He did not patent the invention. He did not make a single coin from it. He gave it to the world completely freely, because he believed with a simplicity that embarrassed some people and moved others that knowledge existed to help people, not to make one person rich. Benjamin Franklin was now famous, far beyond Philadelphia, far beyond America. In England, in France, in the great universities of Europe, scientists wrote him letters. Philosophers quoted him. His name appeared in newspapers on the other side of the ocean. The boy who left school at 8 was now corresponding with the greatest minds of his century. If this story is helping your English today, please subscribe. One click. It helps me keep making stories like this every week. Now, the story continues. And this is where it becomes something different. Benjamin Franklin loved England. This is important to understand, because what came next was not easy for him. And it would not have been painful if he had not cared. He had lived in London. He had friends there, real friends, people he respected and admired. He had read English books his whole life. He thought in the rhythms of the English language. When he imagined a civilized world, it looked something like England, with its institutions and its traditions and its belief, however imperfectly practiced in the rule of law. For many years, he believed that America and England could work things out. that reasonable men on both sides could find a way. He was sent to London as a diplomat to speak for the American colonies, to explain the frustrations that were growing louder every year, to find a way through before things broke apart. He tried for 10 years. 10 years of meetings in cold offices, letters that took months to arrive and months to answer. Careful, patient, reasonable arguments about taxation and representation and the rights of people who had been building a new world for 150 years and were tired of being told they had no voice in the decisions that governed their lives. He was Benjamin Franklin, the most famous American alive. He had proved the nature of lightning. He had helped build a library and a fire department and a hospital and a school. He was charming and wise and funny, and the French loved him, and the English scientists respected him, and he thought he genuinely believed that his name and his reputation were worth something in that government building, in London. In 1774, they proved him wrong. They called him into a large room. Important men, serious faces and cold eyes. One after another, they stood up and attacked him. They called him a troublemaker. They called him disloyal. They said he had betrayed his king. They said things about him that were not true, in voices that were loud and confident, because the room was theirs, and they had decided before he walked in how this was going to end. Benjamin stood before them. He was 68 years old. He stood very straight. He said nothing. For over an hour as they spoke, as they accused, as they tried to reduce this man to something small and manageable, he said nothing. He looked at them and he kept his face still, and he did not give them the reaction they were trying to produce. When it was over, he walked out. He walked into the cold London street. The city he had loved for so many years moved around him as it always had carts and fog and the smell of the river. He walked for a long time. He did not speak to anyone. He had spent 10 years trying to prevent what was now inevitable. He had been patient. He had been reasonable. He had used every tool available to a man who believed in conversation and compromise and the power of a well-made argument. None of it had worked. He returned to America. He was almost 70 years old. He had crossed the ocean more times than most people did in a lifetime. He could have gone home to Philadelphia and sat in a chair by the fire and let younger men handle what was coming. He did not. He chose America. He chose revolution. In 1776, he sat down and helped write the document that said America was no longer part of England. The Declaration of Independence. His name was on it. In ink. In his own handwriting. He understood what that meant. If America lost this war, that signature was a death sentence. He was 70 years old. He had built everything he had with his own hands over a lifetime of work, and he put all of it, his name, his reputation, his life, on one piece of paper. He signed anyway, but there was another piece of paper he could not control. His son, William Franklin. William was the royal governor of New Jersey, appointed by the King of England, loyal to the crown. While his father was signing the Declaration of Independence, William was working against the revolution. Father and son, on opposite sides of the most important conflict in American history. William was arrested, held as a prisoner. Benjamin did not intervene. He could not. He had chosen his side. William had chosen his. They did not speak for many years. When they finally met again briefly, years later it was not the same. Something had broken that does not mend. They wrote a few letters after that. Cold, formal letters. The kind you write to someone you once knew very well and no longer know at all. Benjamin kept those letters. He kept them in a box. He never threw them away. America needed help to win. It needed ships and soldiers and money from a country powerful enough to stand against England. Benjamin Franklin, 72 years old, exhausted, carrying the weight of what had happened with William, got on a ship and sailed to France. To that palace, to that room, to those men in their silk and metals. He walked in wearing his simple clothes and his farmer's hat. And now you know what was behind that smile. A man who had crossed an ocean at 72, who had just lost his son to a choice he believed was right, who had been humiliated in London after 10 years of trying to prevent a war, who had signed his name on a document that might get him killed, who was now asking the most powerful monarchy in Europe to bet everything on a small revolution that most of the world expected to fail. He spoke simply, clearly, honestly, the way he had always spoken. France said yes. French ships came. French soldiers came. French gold came. The revolution that might have died became something that could not be stopped. The war ended in 1783. America was free. Benjamin helped write the peace treaty with England, sitting across the table from the country that had humiliated him 9 years earlier, negotiating as the representative of a nation that had just beaten them. He was 77 years old. He sailed home. He had been away from Philadelphia for 9 years. 9 years away from the streets where he had built everything. 9 years away from his library, the library he had built so that no child would sit in the dark, wondering if books were for people like them. Philadelphia looked the same, but Benjamin's life had a different shape now. William was not there. A box of cold letters in a drawer somewhere, and the knowledge that some things cannot be undone. In his final years, Benjamin helped write the United States Constitution, the document that explained how the new country would be governed, what rights its people would have, how power would be held and limited and shared. He was 81 years old at the Constitutional Convention. Some days the pain in his body was too much to stand. He sat in his chair. He listened carefully. He spoke when he had something to say. Younger men came to him quietly, one at a time, and asked, "What do you think? What should we do here? How should this work?" And Benjamin told them the truth. That was the only thing he had ever known how to give. Benjamin Franklin died on April 17th, 1790. He was 84 years old. He died at home, in Philadelphia, the city he had walked into as a teenager, with dirty clothes and bread under his arms and nothing else. 20,000 people came to his funeral. In a country of 4 million people, 20,000 came to stand in the streets of Philadelphia and say goodbye. People in America mourned. People in France mourned. Scientists in London and philosophers in Edinburgh, and ordinary readers who had laughed at Poor Richard's sayings for decades, they all felt the same thing. That something large had left the world, something that would not come back. Walk into any library today, sit down, pick up a book, any book, about anything, in any language. Feel the weight of it in your hands. Understand that it is yours to hold, yours to open, yours to spend an afternoon with. And no one will ask you how much money your father made, or whether you have the right kind of name. Benjamin Franklin helped build that. He was 8 years old when the world told him books were not for people like him. He was 25 when he proved the world wrong. He spent the next 60 years making sure as many people as possible had what he had been told he could not have. Turn on a light tonight. Look at the lamp. The electricity inside that wire. Benjamin Franklin was the first person to understand what it really was. He stood in a thunderstorm with a kite because the question mattered more than the danger. His face is on the $100 bill, the most valuable piece of paper in America. A man who gave away his most important invention for free, who walked into Philadelphia with bread under his arms. There he is on the money. And William, his son. Benjamin wrote his will near the end. He left William almost nothing. He wrote the reason in the document itself plainly, without drama, in the voice of a man who had learned a long time ago not to say more than he needed to. The part William took in the late war would account for his leaving him no more. Short words. A father's last words to a son. Behind them a silence that no achievement could fill, that no library or lightning rod or famous face on a piece of currency could make smaller. Benjamin Franklin changed the world, and he paid for it. Not in money, in something heavier. That is the truth about most people who change things. The cost is never only theirs to carry. Think about what Benjamin Franklin did after school ended at age 8. No teacher. No classroom. No one to explain things step by step or check his work or tell him he was on the right path. Just books, borrowed books. Books he walked miles in the rain to hold for a few days. Books he read twice and 3 times until the ideas inside them stopped being someone else's and started being his own. He taught himself everything. One word at a time. One page at a time. Alone. You are doing the same thing right now. You are sitting somewhere, maybe alone, listening to English. No classroom. No teacher at the front of the room writing on a board. Just a story. And your ears, and your mind working quietly, catching words, building meaning, getting a little stronger with every sentence you understand. That is exactly what Benjamin Franklin did, except you are doing it in a language that is not your first. You are doing it across a distance he never had to cross. That is harder than what he did. So do not be impatient with yourself. Do not compare your progress to anyone else's. Every story you finish is one more mile. Every word that becomes clear to you is one more door that was closed and is now open. Keep reading. Keep listening. One story at a time. Just like Franklin. Here is my question for you today. Benjamin Franklin's most famous saying is, "An investment in knowledge pays the best interest." Tell me in the comments what is one thing you are learning right now, outside of English, that makes you genuinely curious. It can be anything, big or small. I read every comment, and I want to know. If this story helped your English today, please subscribe. A new story every week, about people who started with nothing and changed everything. Next time, I will tell you about someone else who also loved books, who also taught himself when no teacher was available, who also paid a price that most people never saw. Someone who changed an entire country, not with an army, but with words alone. I will see you then, my friends.